I'm Talia Ricci. Tonight, a shooting outside a Toronto high school leaves one teen dead and another injured.
At this time, I can't confirm if either of those two males were students at the school.
It happened outside Woburn Collegiate Institute shortly before 3:30 this afternoon. We'll have the latest from the scene. Plus,
the government is going to pass the bill. We're going to move forward and provide stability.
The TDSB says it will close all schools for in-person learning on Friday, as 55,000 Ontario education workers are set to walk off the job in a province-wide protest. And
I broke down and I started to cry. And it's not right what they're doing.
A call to stop the relocation of residents of a downtown shelter hotel. Police are still on scene tonight outside a Toronto high school where a shooting left one teen dead and another injured. Police are still searching for the suspect. Dahlia Ashery reports.
An ongoing investigation and a heavy police presence here tonight at Woburn Collegiate Institute, where two teenagers were shot just outside the school. Toronto police say one of the teenagers was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries and later pronounced dead at the hospital. The other teenager walked into the hospital with gunshot wounds and was later transported to a trauma center. Toronto police say the shooting happened just before 3:30 p.m. The high school and nearby junior school were forced into a lockdown for an hour and a half and later lifted. At around 4:30 p.m., police began escorting students out of the building. Police have not released the names of the victims. Duty Inspector Lori Cranenberg.
At this time, I can't confirm if either of those two males were students at the school.
Cranenberg says it's still unclear if there's any connection between the victims or suspect.
We're reviewing everything and looking to see what that connection may be, but I don't have a definitive answer for you right now.
Toronto police say several shots were fired. Toronto Mayor John Tory reacting to the shooting, saying any gun violence is unacceptable, but it is even more frustrating to know someone would carry a gun, let alone pull the trigger anywhere near a school. TDSB spokesperson says there are close to 1,000 students who attend the school. 60 cameras are located around the building.
Kids saw it happen. A lot of our staff saw it happen, of course. Very upset.
She says there will be counseling and support provided for students and staff.
Something like this happens, it is exceedingly horrible for people, and people are very, very upset. We will be bringing in a full group of trained social workers who work with kids, the younger kids at Woburn Junior, the older kids, teenagers here, who are trained to work with kids who want to talk about their feelings.
The TDSB says police have informed that the investigation will go on until the morning. It's still unclear if school will be open at that time, saying parents and staff will be notified by tonight. So far, no arrests have been made, and police say they don't have any information on the suspect's description. Police are also asking anyone with information or camera footage to come forward. Dahlia Ashery, CBC News, Toronto.
there was a dramatic escalation in the showdown between the province and the union representing thousands of education workers today. After introducing legislation to impose a contract on CUPE members and make a strike illegal, the union fired back, saying its members won't be on the job on Friday. Lorenzo Redekop has more.
Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? No. I heard some no's.
The opposition voices were loud, but with the government majority, legislation to make a strike by CUPE education workers illegally easily passed first reading.
I declare the motion carried.
It still has to pass 2 more readings to become official.
If that bill passes before Friday, it doesn't matter. If they say it's illegal to strike, then we will be on a political protest.
That means CUPE workers won't be in schools without a negotiated deal. The union says the government's latest offer over the weekend would amount to very little extra for workers, an extra 2.5% a year for the lowest paid compared to their former offer of 2%. CUPE wants close to 12% a year, and the union says it still plans to go back to the table for 3 planned bargaining sessions starting tomorrow.
Negotiations aren't done. This is a piece of legislation that was just proposed. It hasn't been passed. It's just a piece of paper that has been received at Queen's Park. We are going to continue on as we said that we would and we committed to.
Union leader Laura Walton in a Rosie the Riveter costume, a symbol of women's labor rights. She says the union is working on a counteroffer.
We gave the union an option to do that yesterday. We invited them. We increased their offer. They rejected it and said, no, we're striking on Friday. The government is going to pass the bill. We're going to move forward and provide stability.
He says this is about ensuring kids stay in school. This labor lawyer says it's unusual for a government to put forward legislation, especially before workers have walked off the job.
The right of those workers to strike, we do know that this is a right that has been enshrined and been recognized by the Supreme Court of Canada back in 2015. This is a right that we know is going to be or should be upheld if challenged in the courts.
This seems like a movie I've seen before. It's kind of like a horror movie.
Today, the Liberal Party said it was wrong when it used back-to-work legislation against teachers back in 2015. But this government is also invoking the rarely used notwithstanding clause to keep the eventual law in place in the event of any constitutional challenges.
Every time a provincial government uses this clause, it weakens Canada's democracy. Why is it that this Ford government cannot do its work, its basic work, without resorting to the use of that hammer?
The government extended the hours of the House for tomorrow in order to fast-track this. They'll start at 5 a.m. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
And we will stand up to ensure they remain there without
Now, the uncertainty over what will happen on Friday is creating plenty of anxiety for parents across the province. The TDSB is the latest school board to announce that all schools will be closed to in-person learning on Friday. Chris Glover has more.
Trick or treat. Almost nothing can eclipse the excitement of Halloween at school, unless you're a parent staring down the possibility of labor action.
Obviously, I hope it doesn't go down and they can come to an agreement.
I mean, it definitely, disturbs the routine of the child and, everything else.
The Union for Education Workers remains committed to some form of job action come Friday, even after the province tabled anti-strike legislation this afternoon.
I don't think that's appropriate because as Canadians, we should be able to stand and demonstrate when something is not going our way.
At stake, salaries for 55,000 CUPE workers in Ontario schools, including educational assistants, custodians, and early childhood educators.
I don't know. I don't know what else this government is thinking except to destroy public education. It's disgusting.
And I don't see them as walking a picket line more than walking the poverty line.
Office, anyone can hear me?
Hannah Ali has been a special needs assistant for 25 years. She says forget a one-day job action. Without a proper wage increase, the province is going to see workers like her quit.
I work 2 jobs to survive. Imagine if I don't have another job to cover up the expense, what's going to be? Then I'll leave it.
4 major parents' organizations penned a letter to the education minister, pointing out a funding surplus in Ontario.
And so we're asking why? Why would Ford and Lecce behave like such bullies?
School boards around Ontario remain divided. Halton will keep high school kids in class and rotate elementary students between virtual and in-person. But several boards, including Toronto Catholic and Peterborough, will close if education workers go off the job.
Like on one hand, obviously it's like, okay, well, I need my kids in school, but on the other hand, to do it at the sacrifice of people's well-being and livelihood is really not a great look for the Ontario government.
A scary prospect, she says, for many Ontario families this Halloween. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a first look at the forecast, and not perfect trick-or-treating conditions tonight, but at least it didn't rain too much.
Yeah, it's like we can get one thing that's working for us and then some other things aren't. So the temperature at least was relatively mild. That was nice to see. But yeah, it's not a very strong system, but we do have this kind of slow moving one still giving some pockets with a little bit of drizzle, some light showery activity. And of course, the fog being the big issue too, because reduced visibility means, we're trying so hard to make sure that everyone was kept safe. But that carries on through the overnight into tomorrow morning. So all these areas in our advisory from Environment Canada. So do beware. Even a few spots could still be a little bit wet tomorrow morning, especially for early commuters, and then with the reduced visibility you have on top of that. So something to be mindful of. But once we get through this, as this system keeps working its way on, we do have some cloud cover that will still linger after that. And then into tomorrow afternoon, we get more clearing and into sunshine. So there'll be breaks before that. But as we get into more and more sun coming out, the temperature will be climbing, rising overnight a little bit or nearly steady, and 17, Talia, for our high for the 1st of November.
Can't complain about that. Thanks, Colette. There are calls for the City of Toronto to stop relocating residents of a shelter hotel until better practices are in place. The Novotel on the Esplanade opened as a temporary shelter site in February 2021, but the city says operations will cease at the end of the year. Dale Manukduk explains.
Hi there, you've reached Gord Tanner, General Manager of Shelter Support and Housing.
This phone call made to SSHA is part of a campaign asking people to bombard the lines and make demands on behalf of the residents of this temporary hotel shelter on the Esplanade.
I'm calling to demand real housing for every single resident, no more evictions without an individualized plan.
The residents are being relocated because the Novotel is returning to hotel operations in 2023.
I broke down and I started to cry. And it's not right what they're doing.
This 59-year-old man, who CBC agreed to keep anonymous for fear of being punished by the hotel shelter, says they tried to split him and his 19-year-old son up. Here's what he's looking for.
A 2-bedroom, just like anyone else looking in the city, to raise their kid and their animals and be together. Not send one person here and one person there.
He says he hasn't been offered that individual plan, even though that's what the city says they'll help create for people.
I don't know the circumstances around this particular situation that you're sharing, but certainly, keeping family members together, keeping people connected to the supports they have in the community locally and more broadly would be certainly a component of the plans.
So far, 77 of 251 residents have moved from the hotel shelter, which was always intended to be temporary. However, some clients there say people are being rushed out in the middle of the night, sometimes with just 30 minutes notice, like in this video which CBC Toronto obtained, which was taken around 1 a.m. on Saturday.
The majority of that work is going to happen during the daytime, although there'll be situations when, maybe the staff have not connected with the client who is only there, later into the evening, and those conversations need to happen.
This resident, who goes by the name Dreads, used to live in a park encampment, says people are being disconnected from their services.
So where some people have been here for 2 years, as long as the program's been open, a worker still hasn't communicated with them about a tailored plan on structuring them in a place of living or recovery, whatever their situation be.
The city has around 100 other shelter locations with a range of services they're trying to connect people to. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
A man says he'll never forget his recent fishing trip after he saved a senior who drove into Hamilton Harbor waters. Meg Roberts has this story and a warning: some of the footage may be distressing to some.
Come on, someone come here quick, man.
The right place at the right time. That's the only way Sean McNeil can describe what happened Thursday night at the Hamilton Harbor. He was there to fish, but quickly found himself doing CPR on a 78-year-old man after he drove his car down the bayfront boat ramp into the water.
We realized, hey, the guy's still in there. So we're yelling at him, hey, man, get out, get out.
You gotta get out of the car, you gotta get out.
The entire incident filmed by McNeil's friend. Once McNeil noticed the bubbles had stopped coming from the car, he knew he had to jump in.
Fuck, someone got
As I pulled him out, he was completely limp, so I was like, okay, might be a little bit too late here. So Sam's on shore and he's yelling, do CPR, so I was like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Oh my God.
The only thing, McNeil says he didn't formally know how to do CPR.
I just kind of remember what I've seen in movies, right? Chest compressions, blowing them out.
Come on, wake up.
But after 3 rounds of CPR, the man started breathing again. And with the help from police and a nearby fishing boat, the man was rescued.
Everyone kept telling me to get into the truck, but I was running around in my Crocs just trying to, calm down, but I kept shaking and everyone's like, are you cold? I'm like, I'm not cold. I'm just kind of you know?
Stop it there! Around my way.
Hamilton police calling the citizen brave in an email sent to CBC News. Police say the driver was taken to hospital in non-life-threatening condition, and the investigation remains ongoing.
If you can do something like save a life, do it. Like, no matter how small or big it might be, whether it be jumping into freezing cold water or even just talking to somebody. You never know what might make you a hero, too.
Sean, hop on the boat too, man.
Meg Roberts, CBC News.
Ontario's finance minister says the province will release its fall economic statement in 2 weeks. And Peter Bethlenfalvy says the province is in good shape to weather the current global political and economic uncertainties.
The message that I want people to hear from me is that we have confidence. We have confidence in the people and businesses and the workers of Ontario. And regardless of what's around the corner, I'm confident we'll get through it together.
Bethlenfalvy was speaking at the Canadian Club today. Last week, the province's financial watchdog said it projects budget surpluses in Ontario for the next 5 years. But the Financial Accountability Office says the government is not being transparent about how it plans to spend money over the next several years. Former Ottawa Police Chief Peter Sloly was in the hot seat today at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. As Rafi Buchanan reports, Sloly fought back against accusations of poor leadership and planning.
You were pretty concerned that you would lose your job and be blamed for what had happened.
Absolutely not, sir.
Former Police Chief Peter Sloly confronted by the lawyer representing the force he once led. His resignation weeks into the protest convoy that occupied downtown Ottawa, and his conduct up to that day, a big part of the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Previous police witnesses have accused them of ignoring emailed reports warning about the danger posed by the protest.
I'm going to suggest to you, Mr. Sloly, that once you receive that email, this one here, you at some point decided that you could blame Deputy Chief Bell at the time for not planning for this event.
That is absolutely incorrect, sir, and I really take offense to that notion. Thank you.
The lawyer also accused Sloly of micromanagement and angry outbursts.
Deputy Chief Ferguson has in her notes that during the meeting on February 9th, you said twice that you will crush anyone who undermines the operation.
That was an inappropriate term at a very stressful meeting, but yes, sir. It was not said as a blanket statement that there could not be any operational, tactical, or even strategic changes.
Meanwhile, the lawyer for the Canadian government focused again on a key part of its thesis, how police were struggling to get tow trucks to play ball or even find them without the Emergencies Act.
At one point, there was an attempt to get the Ministry of Transport to assist with the tow truck issue. Do you recall that?
At one point, I think even Commissioner Lucky, I don't think she was flippant about it, but they were looking at Kijiji to find heavy tow trucks in Canada.
Today, Sloly also pushed back against the idea shutting down traffic to trucks would have prevented many problems.
Closing down our core, closing down our interprovincial bridges, for any reason, are hugely problematic, and they create a range of public safety and community wellness issues.
The inquiry also heard today that crisis management firm Navigator billed the Ottawa Police $186,000 for a communications strategy, and it was one of 2 such agencies on the public payroll during the crisis. The lawyer suggesting Sloly's concern about reputation predated his departure from the force. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Here's a live look at our city skyline tonight, sitting at about 11 degrees and looking spooky out there on Halloween Day. Paulette's back now with our extended forecast, and you told us earlier about that beautiful first day of November we're getting. How long will that stick around for?
Yeah, what a way to go into November with some of the milder air that we're seeing in place. Yes, unusual and above seasonal. It'll stick around for a few days, though, so we'll show you that 5-day forecast coming up. But overnight tonight, still kind of those spooky conditions as we still have a bit of drizzle, but the fog and in some areas rather dense, so that can be dangerous. Watch out for reduced visibility. I showed you earlier in the show the areas that are even in the advisory. We get into clearing, especially tomorrow afternoon, and as we do and the sun comes out, that's helping the temperature to head head up towards those mid and upper teens that we'll be seeing, and they are going to stick around for at least a little while. Now, the cloud cover, stubborn. The system isn't very strong in terms of the amounts of rain, kind of negligible, less than 10 millimeters in most cases, and just kind of stubborn. So we have to get that out of here. Early commuters may still have some patches where the roads are wet, and then, of course, areas with reduced visibility. As we get that clearing coming in, we have the sun later in the day. Then again, tomorrow night, we are going to see fog development. That'll linger, and that will linger as we go into Wednesday, and then we lose that as we head through into Thursday, but we have to burn it off. So overnight tonight, this is what we're looking at. This happens a lot, by the way, where we get fog development at this time of the year. The ground and the water is still a bit warmer, and then the sun setting earlier, so there's more nighttime, and the temperature falling off, and that contrast often carries on and causes the fog. So overnight tonight, the temperature, you may notice something here, either as it is now, steady, or even coming up a degree or two in a few cases. Once we can get into that sun, we see that 17 for Tuesday. Wednesday, the temperature dips a little bit, but still looking pretty good, sunny, and 12 maybe being a little bit conservative. Thursday, 14, and then we end the week again going towards those upper teens.
I'll have to find a patio. Thanks, Colin. Pumpkin carving is a skill that not everyone has. Premier Doug Ford proving that today.
Now we're going to take care of his nose. Okay, this is time for my pumpkin reveal. And I just want to, full disclosure, I'm not a pumpkin carver. But here we go. I think there's kind of a resemblance, right?
Ford taking a breath there before revealing the true horror of Halloween this year. And the Premier also reminding parents to check their kids' candy before they eat it. A little quality control, as he calls it.
The first one is really good.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. And we'll leave you with some of the best dressed kids in Toronto today, celebrating the spookiest day of the year. Good night.